Here we are. We're standing at the Makarora Wilkin confluence, looking towards the main divide. That's Aeolus. It's not on the main divide, but the head wall of Newlands Valley is at the back. So that's 18 kilometres in a direct line from where you're standing there, down there on the Makarora. So this is there's two parts to this talk. The first part was going to be given by Rachel Hufton, but she's off banding wader birds in Nelson and Golden Bay. So you've got me for part one and part two. So part one is more of an update from 2020 presentation here. It's more about the bird survey trends, banding, migration records, threat management, education promotion, and just an update on the link between what we're doing, ABT, Aspiring Biodiversity Trust, is doing in the Upper Alpine and the interface with the polycarp forest. The part two is essentially what I spent a lot of time doing, looking at changes in the geometry of the channels and river bars in relation to the Braided River, and then looking at the interaction or the effect that has correlation with species, territories, breeding, nesting, with the changes in the river structure. So since 2020, we've done a bit of work in promoting not only our Aspiring Biodiversity Trust, but also the work in relation to Braided River habitat and species. We won an award with the Cawthron Institute for the film that was essentially focused on Braided River. We got runner-up in a film we put into the Mountain Film Festival. That was about everything, the alpine habitat through to the Braided River. And then we also got some media coverage of visiting a pair of kaki on two occasions. Here we are. This is sort of like a broad overview. You can see the Braided River is defined by a trap network on the Makarora, then into the Wilkin, and then up towards the main divide, where our work is related to protecting rock wren, kea, Fio in the Siberia and the Upper Wilkin, and in the teal. It's now part of a new Fio recovery site based on some work over the entire Makarora catchment. And also just down there, the wetland, a subsidiary wetland to the east of the Makarora Braided River, is where we had the critically endangered kaki pair visiting, the same pair in 2021 and 2023. Also in the polycarp forest, we have a regular recording of a bat shown there with a yellow star, but we've also been attempted to record bats in other locations up the Wilkin, in the Teal, and along the Makarora River. Just an update on our predator control. So we started with predator control on the Braided River. We've moved up, and then we went to the Alpine, the main divide, and then we've bridged the Braided River and the Alpine, linking through the mid-Wilkin, Siberia. Essentially, the colour variations there, the stoat, the rat, and the hedgehog are clearly indicated. So the hedgehog focused mainly down on the Braided River, the Makarora and the lower Wilkin, whereas the stoat all the way through into the Alpine, and the rat sort of pretty much everywhere. Sadly, as of last summer, we've had more rat in the Alpine, and that encouraged, to some extent, DOC extending the 1080 coverage to a lot of the ground above the bushline. So our threat management, it's not just through trying to control rat, stoat, hedgehog, and mice. We're also looking at controlling southern blackback gull. We're looking at working with landowners in relation to weeds and stock. And then something we can't really do much about is the local zoning of silver beach masting, which is, happens more often. And in terms of the Braided River, with having the silver beach forest right there, it becomes a breeding ground for rat and then stoat that eventually late in the summer typically come out onto the river. And then, of course, the weather and climate. So ABT has been doing surveying of threatened species as well as spurwing and blackback gull and other species, but these are the ones that are summarised in this image here. So the surveying's been started in 2017 and it's been going through to last summer every year. So this is a summary of 2018 on the left, and 2023 on the right. So essentially the size of those beach balls or pie charts is determined by the abundance of banded dotterel. So there is an increase in the size of those pie charts from left to right, 2018 to 2023, largely reflecting the increase in banded dotterel. We do survey into the lower Wilkin. So we do survey into the lower Wilkin, but on every survey occasion, the numbers there aren't great. Same with this section in the top end, what's in the Boiler Flat section. But Braided River birds do forage right up into Kerra Forks, and the black-billed gull has been known to nest just in here on 1 year, but that hasn't been part of the survey. So essentially, there is broadly, you can see the distribution changes of the different species, and there is an increase from 2018 through to 2023 of the Wilkin. Just in terms of numbers, so for each of the species, different colour for each year. There are positive trends for all the protected endangered species. Southern black-backed gull, we've been working on controlling them. There is a negative trend there. Worryingly, there is a positive trend in relation to spur-wing plover. So just going through the individual species. So there's a positive trend here for black-fronted tern. What we're finding is that perhaps for the black-fronted tern, a lot of the returning birds that we survey are actually non-breeding, because what we're finding is that the number of nest sites relative to what we survey, there's a disparity there. So we think that some of the returning black-fronted tern are juveniles and don't breed. Positive trend for the black-billed gull. In 2021, 247 of these were banded. There is an interesting thing about the black-billed gulls that they turn up for the survey, they'll start breeding, and then there'll be a weather event, and they'll disappear, and there'll be a residual colony of about 150 that'll stay, that they don't breed. They've been going off and breeding somewhere else, and we think that last season they went off and bred in the Patukituki. Positive trend for the ryebill. What we find is that for the ryebill, the nests that we monitor, that there's generally 2 eggs laid and maybe two chicks hatch, but generally only 1 chick will go through to the point of potential fledging. And there's been some banding of the ryebill as well. Positive trend for the banded dotterel, and same again, positive trend for the pied oyster catcher, South Island pied oyster catcher. AJ8 was banded in 2021 in the Firth of Thames, and in 2022 he had 1 fledgling, and in 2023 he had 2 fledglings. So he's a regular, AJ8. We have actually had other banded South Island pied oyster catchers turning up as well, but AJ8, he's a star. Decreasing trend with the black-back gull. We have been culling. There are at least 4 sites that they'll breed every year. We have been doing some culling of adults, as well as termination of eggs, and I think that's part of the reason that we're sort of getting the numbers down. There is 1 site where we've been culling the adults and terminating the eggs, and for some reason they've got smart and decided to move away from that site and spread out. With the spur-wing plover, we did have a trail camera on 1 nest of a ryebill, and here's an image of a spur-wing plover harassing. We don't actually know whether we don't think it took the egg, but it's certainly, because it was still there, but certainly harassing the male and the female, taking turns on the nest. So as shown there, with that increasing for some reason, for whatever reason, increasing numbers of spur-wing plovers, that is an issue to be looked at. So here we are, we're on to part 2. And in terms of weather and river flow data sources that we have available to correlate with changing channels and bars and the dynamics of the Braided River. There's ORC's Karen Forks flow meter here, and then in relation to our Encounter Solutions remote monitoring system, we have rainfall measurement in Crucible, snow depth on the main divide at Castalia, and then rainfall lower down at Castalia. So these are all information that's we're using long-term to monitor our rock wren populations, which you can see we have defined the rock wren populations in the north-south branches of Siberia, as well as Crucible, as well as Newlands, Wonderland, Castalia, but we only have trapping in North Siberia, Crucible, and Castalia, so we can have a comparison eventually. But the system is set up to monitor the weather long term, particularly snow depth and rainfall. And so the output, this is a typical output from the Karen Forks flow. This is our output from the Crucible rainfall with temperature, same again, snow depth with temperature. And putting these two together, the rainfall as well as the flow, it's significant in terms of if the freezing levels are right, the flow through to the river and potential flooding is decreased if you've got precipitation of snow rather than rain. Generally, the Karen Forks flow, although it's only we only have flow meterage on the Wilkin, which flows into the Makarora. It's quite a good proxy for flow on the upper Makarora as well as the lower Makarora. And generally speaking, if the flow is less than 30 cumecs, it's safe for an individual to be out there working and crossing. Although we have mitigated that recently by using pack rafting for crossings. And servicing traps as well as monitoring the birds. Generally, if the river is flowing at greater than 300 cumecs, you can be pretty sure that's all the ribel nesting wiped out. We'll get to the significance that will be shown in the next few slides. And it seems that more temporal to sustained high flow rather than sharp spikes in high flow result in changes in channels and bar geometry. So it's the time that you have high flow rate rather than necessarily a really high flow rate that results in channel and bar changes. So what we have here is 3 composite images of total water flat to delta Makarora River over from 2018 and then 2023 April, 2023 October. You could have thrown up many more composite images, but then it would just be way too complicated. And these images, in a sense, show the changes and can be correlated with weather events. So what we're going to do is we're going to start at the Delta Flaxmill area and then go look at the Wilkin School Road and then the Homestead Flat section in terms of the dynamics over those time periods. So here we go. In 2018, essentially there was a main channel running down through here. This channel over here wasn't really happening. And then after a flood event, it changed so that the flow went more over towards to the west. That pretty much was enhanced later in 2023. The significance of these areas is that this created more preferred ribel nesting sites. What you can see here is, in terms of the preferred ribel habitat down here, is that the amount of clean gravels, which is what they like. If you think that the gravels look really white, they are. It's because the material in there is like 30-40% quartz. That's a function of the high-grade schist that a lot of this rock is sourced from. So then the next image is going to be shown from this point here. And this just gives you a rough idea of the spatial distribution of the ribel. So this is taken all in one day. That's actually the position of the composite images were taken from, looking back up and down the river. We're looking back the other way. So you get an idea of the spatial distribution of ribel nesting. This one over here was shared with black-fronted tern and banded dotterel. The flooding, it prevents any kind of weed build-up, and these the scab weed or the cushion grass, they're maintained during the flooding and hold it together. And even if they are removed, they quickly colonise and build up again. And this is a shared banded dotterel, ribal, and black-fronted tern nesting location. And this is some of the widest part of the river here, up to a kilometre wide. This is trap number MR40 towards the end of the peak of the season. It's right out in the middle. That log has withstood many floods, and it always produces a stoat, and it's positioned near to a ribal nest. Moving up the river, Walken Road, major change here. 2019 flood went through here, brought the flow back over this way, and that's pretty much maintained. It's affected the distribution of ribal again. Whether there's just more ribal coming back or whether the changes created more ribal habitat, that's a good question. This is the 2019 flood. This was 1,250 cumecs. We only lost 3 or 4 traps in that. Most of those get washed down to Boundary Creek, and they get returned by people who are out gathering firewood. It brings in a lot of clay and silt, and then that silt and clay is regularly blown around. There seems to be more clay and silt coming out of the Walken for some reason. Here we are. This is Homestead Flat. Again, shifted in the channel from westerly to an easterly position. This then created actually a preferred black-fronted tern habitat, which persisted. And also in the last nesting season, we saw ribal up in here where we hadn't seen them before. The problem with this one here is that it's accessible to dog car walkers and people putting their boats in, so the nesting tern are impacted by human activity. And in the last 2 seasons, it's created a staggered breeding season for the black-fronted tern. Here's one of the black-fronted tern chicks, about 2 to 3 days old, very mobile, they're good swimmers, and I really don't know how you work out whether individuals like that fledge, because they're off, they swim, they're down the river. So that was taken on the 16th of January, and then on the 5th of February, this was his habitat. This is a 600 cubic flood event. Whether he survived it or not, whether he wandered off and was swimming. Just a detail of last season. So this was the 600 cubic event that terminated the 2023 season. This was the sustained high level event that caused changes in the Braided River in the channel bar distribution. And here we had the return of the Braided River birds. Black-billed gulls started to roost. Then on the survey, October 8th of October 2023, the ribal were all in position nesting. The black-billed gulls were starting to lay, were making nests and laying eggs. Black-fronted tern were putting down nests and laying eggs. And then 26th of October, we had a 600 cubic event, and that's wiped out all that nesting start. So there was a restart, and then the season was finished on the 20th of the 1st with another 600 cubic event. And that one actually involved changes in river bars and channels. And then subsequent to that, anything that had fledged was roosting and feeding, just hanging out, having a good time. So just going through looking at the different sections. So during the survey, the orange shows where the ribal were. They were just visiting to these locations. They weren't actually nesting. Oh, sorry, that's in the red here. The black-fronted tern was starting to nest. And the blue is actually where the black-fronted tern ended up after the 600 cubic event. And then the same over here. And then moving down into the Homestead Flat area, you can see where the ribal were. That's where the green is where they eventually were nesting. The black-finner tern persisted with where they were nesting. Down over here, the ribal also persisted in the location that it was nesting. And then looking at the school road through to Wilkin Road location, all of the ribal that lost their nests here, the green is where they ended up re-nesting. This red circle here, the black-billed gull, that's where they'd started nesting. Well, apart from 150 non-breeders, they went off to the Matukituki to breed after this 20 October flood event. Not all of the ribal got taken out by the 600 cubic flood event. This one here got run over by a farm truck before the flood. And then looking at in the lower section, you can pretty much see that even though the surveyed ribal nesting, they were pretty faithful to site. They shifted engine location, but not a lot. So that's it. This is the non-breeding black-billed gull gathering late January, ready to go to wherever they go.
What sort of rats do you have?
Both.
Both.
Yeah.
So do you have ship rats going out actually out into the